So I'd like to share with you some work that I was doing with coming up with a process for growing organizations. I was going around as a business consultant implementing lean to a bunch of different companies throughout California. And I was just wishing that I could come up with a roadmap that I could give to multiple companies so they could start on increasing their profits, their people, and getting their processes dialed in. So the problems that I were solving that seemed just most common throughout, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, logistics, service industries, were that companies and organizations had to focus more on understanding what their customers wanted. They also had to understand what motivated and drove their employees. A lot of the problems that I would deal with, whether it's a quality or a safety problem or a productivity problem, it was always about communication flow. Someone made a mistake, but they didn't have access to the standardized work. Their roles or responsibilities weren't communicated. Someone was supposed to do something, but they had it in their memory instead of sharing that information, not having information centralized or visible. The third one, most common, and this isn't in any particular order, this was just different things that I noticed as a consultant. Just having a lot of waste in their processes, the 8 wastes that we'll talk about later, but just having rework, having employees working too hard, um, just poor ergonomics, just having a lot of waste in the process that slowed down the lead time to the customer. Also, a lot of processes aren't standardized. So when companies are looking to grow or improve, well, they don't have any standards, so they have a hard time scaling up. Another thing was organizing people and organizing projects as well, improving material flow, having agile supply chains, which are important now more than ever. Uh, having a learning organization with some psychological safety so that it's okay to come up with ideas. And then also just listening to their employees so that they could innovate and solve problems together instead of having leaders only solve problems. So these were the most common problems throughout organizations that I visited. So we came up with a roadmap that every organization could follow that would help them continuously improve. So the first step in the roadmap is to understand externally what's going on in the market. What are the different customers' needs? What are your competitors doing? Just so you know, but to keep your eye on companies that are not your competitors right now, but might eventually. I worked for Blockbuster. Our competitor was Hollywood Video. We only paid attention to them, and you know what happened with Netflix and Redbox and all of that. So it's to look externally, look at the forces of change, also look at the incoming workforce, and then just looking at your overall supply chain. So it's just the first step in growth is to think externally. What's going on outside? Then we bring it inside. What could we do or what do we have internally? What's our purpose and principles? Are there any gaps between what customers in the market want externally versus what we could do internally? What are we capable of? What are our constraints? How is our people and our culture doing? Looking at the psychological safety of things. So after we understand externally and internally what our gaps are and what our customers want, what's the voice of the customer, we want to share that with all of our employees. I mean, imagine an organization where every employee knew exactly what the customer wanted. Why shouldn't they? Of course they should. What are the requirements? What's the demand? What do I do when I'm finished with the process? So just fixing that communication flow problem is really what we focus on after our understanding of internal and external processes. So just looking at all of our communication flow, how can we improve that? Once we have our communication flow dialed in, then as a team, we could start eliminating process waste. Let's look at what doesn't add value to the customer anymore. Let's look at how we can make our employees' jobs easier. Okay. Now, after we start to create stability by eliminating waste, we could look at standardizing. So getting some standardized work completed. So we look at standardizing processes, standardize our training, let's standardize how we solve problems together, standardize how we do communication flow. So creating that playbook so that we could scale. What does good look like? What is the best way to do things? So getting our standards and our routines, even standardizing meeting routines. So that's this fourth step is we're really focused on standardizing. The fifth step is organizing our people and planning, looking at our people's strengths and our weaknesses, see if we could cross-functionally organize into cross-functional high-performance teams, really breaking down those silos. Let's get our strengths from different teams working together, coming up with training plans. And this is where we go out and we seek ideas. If you think about the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, this is really where we start planning, the plan part of it, daily coaching. 6, once we have a plan, now let's go out and improve. Let's improve flow. Let's make our value streams and our processes agile. So this is where we focus on just in time, just being able to quickly deliver our products to our customers, whether it's a service industry or it's a product industry, right? Then after that, after we do things, we need to take some time and learn and reflect. So how did our experiments go? Are we still monitoring to see if whatever we tried out in the trials that we did they work? Did they not? Let's come up with decisions cross-functionally involving all employees. This is also during this phase is where we share and we also do some teaching. We did coaching the last step. Now we're going to focus on some teaching. We're going to celebrate what worked. We're going to learn from what didn't work. We're going to have our leaders reflect on how they can improve and just really go through the PDCA cycle. Our 8th step is to solve any new problems that come up, right? So these could be new product developments. This could be, hey, if the trial didn't go as we planned, if we want to do a plan, do, check, act, and something didn't go right, this means keep going. Let's just make adjustments. So solve those problems. Let's not just give up. Then we look again externally. So this process is actually a loop. So if we go back to understand external, we're going to loop our solving problems, the 8th step, back to the first step of understanding externally. What's going on outside of our walls here at our organization? Then how could we help solve some of the problems that the market is having? And then it's about being agile and meeting those needs. So quickly, that is a roadmap for continuous growth as it's laid out here. Understand external, understand internal, that's combined step. We're going to speak and share information, have good communication flow, focus on eliminating process waste. Then we're going to standardize those processes. We're going to organize our people, organize those projects. We want to improve flow to the customer. We want to learn and reflect, and then we want to solve any new problems that come up. We want to innovate and constantly be growing. The interesting thing, when we laid this out, it actually spells something. So it's helpful to remember. It spells use soils. Don't really know what that means. Wasn't really happy about it. But hey, if it helps us remember the steps in a process, then let's do it. I didn't like the name at first, but my wife said, yeah, well, if you're an organization who want to grow, it makes sense. You need to use soils to grow. So here we have it. Use soils for growth. So using this 8-step program, it will help you improve any organization. Thank you.